As I said on a Wednesday, I gave you the bottom half of my top 10 best films of 2017 list. Today, it's going to be the top half. Now, as I said at the time, it's difficult for me to compile these lists because I didn't necessarily like one of these films over another film that didn't make the list, but these are the movies, when looking back over the year, that I remembered the most, the ones that are still rolling around in my head. And for various reasons, I put them on this list, from being thought-provoking, movie-making fare, from having something to say, from being just purely entertaining, or doing what great filmmakers do and making their own vision come to life on the screen. To remind you, the number 10 movie was Mother. Number 9 was the beautiful Istanbul cat movie Kedi. Number 8 was Get Out. Number 7, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And number 6 was Molly's Game. So here we go with the top 5, beginning with number 5. Number 5, War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, there have been about 9 movies in this series since 1968, when it all started almost 50 years ago.
How long have you been here? Long, long time. Home.
But War for the Planet of the Apes is the third in the trilogy, the end of a trilogy of Apes films that started with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, now War for the Planet of the Apes. And this is directed by Matt Reeves, and he has done a spectacular job. This is epic filmmaking. This goes beyond being, the 8th sequel in a series of movies about apes here on the planet. This is so much more. I actually was reminded of movies maybe that David Lean might have directed in his prime. This is truly, truly epic. And it's an amazing story of the apes emerged in a battle against the humans here. The humans led by the Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson. Of course, the apes led by Caesar, played magnificently by Andy Serkis. And somebody out there, please listen. Give this man an Oscar for something. I mean, he does such great, great work in this motion capture arena here, and this movie is his masterpiece. There's no question. It's beautifully made. It has a lot to think about here, about what we are, who we are, what the battle is for, and how we save ourselves as well as our own kind. And this goes in many, many places that I didn't expect, but it is stunningly photographed in every way. This is just top grade A filmmaking, and that is why I put it so high up on the list of films of 2017. Number 5, War for the Planet of the Apes. Number 4, The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water from director Guillermo del Toro. This is his own favorite movie, and it's certainly my favorite movie of his films. It is a magical tale, one that isn't easily described. It takes place in 1962 in a facility, a secret government facility, where they're bringing in this creature. He's known as the Amphibian Man for experimental purposes. But there, one of the people who is on the cleanup crew, Eliza, played by Sally Hawkins, finds him, notices him, falls in love with him. This is an unusual love story, to say the least, but it's also about how we look at other people on this planet. People that we may not notice, or that may not notice us, but those who do find each other. This movie has so many elements to it, so many wonderful actors. Doug Jones plays the Amphibian Man under all of that makeup and costume there. Octavia Spencer, Richard Jenkins is terrific in this film. Michael Shannon, Michael Stolberg. What a cast, but it is magical. Guillermo del Toro just loves movies, and you can see that coming through. This is as much an homage to the movies of his childhood, to the movies that he grew up loving, as it is to the movies we grew up loving, and many different genres. It's a movie that defies description, as I said, and one well worth checking out. Number 4, The Shape of Water. Number 3, Lady Bird. There can be no more delightful movie this year than Lady Bird, which marks the directorial debut of Greta Gerwig. Yes, the actress. She's written a couple of screenplays in the past with Noah Baumbach, but here she writes and directs for the first time on her own, and the results are spectacularly fine.
I want to go where culture is, like
How
New
in the
York,
world did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire,
Well,
where
you
writers
couldn't
live in the
get
woods.
into those schools anyway.
Mom,
You can't even pass your driver's test.
because you wouldn't let me practice
The way
enough.
that you work, or the way that you don't work, you're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
This is a movie, a mother and daughter story. Saoirse Ronan plays a Catholic high school girl who is longing to get out of her hometown of Sacramento and go off on her own. And her mother is played by Laurie Metcalf, who keeps hanging on to her, who isn't that easy to deal with, but has a heart, and you can see it. There are many, many wonderful scenes between the two and with them apart. Wow. Two performances here sure to be nominated for Academy Awards. I can't say enough about the cast of this movie, including Tracy Letts, wonderfully warm as Lady Bird's father. And then there's all the high school students that she works with. This movie had me at hello. They do a high school production of the Stephen Sondheim flop, Merrily We Roll Along. It is absolutely hilarious. There's so much real material in this movie, things that not only teenagers, young people will identify with, but everybody who's ever had a family, anybody who's ever longed to move on with their life, fly away from the nest. This movie has so much to say, but it says it in such an entertaining way. So funny, too. I loved Lady Bird, number 3. Number 2, Dunkirk. This is Christopher Nolan's masterpiece. This movie, which came out in the summer, is about the effort at Dunkirk in 1940 to bring mostly British soldiers home.
You can practically see it from here.
What?
Home.
After being stranded on the beach there. It's about 400,000 of them stranded on this beach in this French town with the Nazis, Nazi Germany and Hitler coming in for the kill, they think, before they can get them out. And this is about that rescue operation. It's an extraordinary movie because we've seen many, many war movies. This one not as familiar to me in terms of Dunkirk, although it is well known in England, obviously. But this is a story about saving people. This is not about battle, as it were. And Christopher Nolan, who also wrote the script, sets it in 3 different time periods over the course of the week. There is stuff that happens in the week's time. There's stuff that happens in an hour's time. There's stuff that happens in a day's time. And we go back and forth between all of that. It is beautifully structured, beautifully made. The cinematography by Hoyte van Hoytema. Onward, everything about it. And it's a very risky movie. This is not a movie obviously tailored to the lowest common denominator audience. No, this is a movie you have to think about, look at. It is unlike any other war movie I've seen. Christopher Nolan has made, indeed, a masterpiece with Dunkirk in every way. That is number 2. So what's number 1? My number 1 movie of 2017 is, drum roll please, The Post, from director Steven Spielberg and starring Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, in the story of the Washington Post and their efforts to publish the Pentagon Papers.
Are these in order?
I don't think so.
There are no page numbers.
Yeah, that's where the top secret stamps were. My source had to cut them off.
We're supposed to retire on Friday.
Ben, how are we supposed to comb through 4,000 pages
They're
of
not
material?
even loosely
The
organized?
Times had 3 months. There's no way we can possibly
He's
get
right.
this done.
We got less than 8 hours.
We could shoot for City, then we'd have 10.
Hey, for the last 6 years, we've been playing catch-up, and now thanks to the President of the United States, who, by the way, has taken a shit all over the First Amendment, we have the goods. We don't have any competition. There's dozens of stories in here. The Times has barely scratched the surface. We have 10 hours till the deadline, so we dig in.
In 1971, these papers detailed our country's history in the Vietnam War over the course of 4 decades. They were not meant to be published like this, but the Washington Post did it after, actually, the New York Times did. The Washington Post jumped into it and made a do-or-die decision here that could have affected the paper, could have ended that newspaper as we know it. This is a pulsating suspense story, which you can't imagine it with the subject matter here, but it is. and how it's laid out here by Spielberg, as well as his screenwriters here, is nothing short of brilliant, and the acting is top rate. This is also a movie about human beings here. Ben Bradlee, the editor of the paper, who we had seen before in the movie version of All the President's Men, beautifully played in an Oscar-winning role by Jason Robards. Now Hanks has taken on this, which is even more difficult when you have an actor's iconic performance in mind, but he finds his own way, unique way, into Ben Bradlee, this gruff editor who made the right decisions at the right time. And then there's Meryl Streep. Can she do no wrong? Here she plays Katharine Graham, the publisher of the Washington Post. She was thrust into this role after the death of her husband. She didn't really know anything about the publishing business, and now she's making decisions that the paper's future relies on. And boy, does she play this to the hilt. She and Hanks are terrific together. This movie is one for the ages. It's an antidote to the era of fake news. It shows how important journalists are. The free press, the very free press and the First Amendment that is at stake when this happened in 1971 and seems to be at stake again. A more timely movie you can't imagine. That is the reason this is my #1 choice. I think it's the most important film of the year, and it must be seen. That's it. My choice for the top 10 films of 2017. I hope 2018 turns out to be as great a movie year as this one has, and I hope you have a very happy new year.